Thrand here. We want to address Locked and Loaded with Ermey. We love the guy. He did great. Full Metal Jacket and all the movies he's been in. But we tested the katana against a longsword. One of the problems is the longsword they used wasn't an early period longsword, and everybody gets longsword confused with every other kind of longsword. They did a 15th century longsword. That thing that he used, it was more for thrusting, and it was a well-balanced sword. He used one-handed, two-handed. But we're going to test a Viking longsword today and a katana. Now this katana here is one of your newer age ones. It's more like a late century dueling katana. So we don't know the grip rate he had. This is probably maybe lighter than the one that he's going to show right here. So we're going to test and see what we do with this breastplate. We do have a real breastplate here, not a whatever he had. Theirs didn't really look believable to me. We're going to hit it and see what kind of damage we do with this. Come in here and take a good whack at it. Notice how I'm hitting with this part of the sword? This is what you should hit. Yes, I can break this blade doing this. But it's better to do it that way than what they did and get like this, which makes no sense. So I guess they did it for safety reasons. So I don't think Ermey is famous for using the sword, so we'll see what happens here. Wow, not bad. We've got a good crease and some cutting. Let me hit it one more time and see what happens here. I'll hit it a little bit lower and see what I can do with lots of power. I know the guy would be feeling that. But that's about all it did. Now, if we want, we'll go ahead and do our thrust test just like he did and see what happens. Remember, all we're going to be testing on one-handed sword today. We're going to thrust it and see if we can get a piercing. This might break. I have no idea. We'll give everything we got here. No piercing on a real breastplate. We'll try it again. No piercing at all. If you notice, you don't see the damage you saw on theirs. I have a feeling they weren't testing a real breastplate. So I am unable to actually pierce this that way. We'll try one more time. Nope. I'm not getting a piercing. Now, let's come back up here and we'll try with the Viking longsword from the 9th century. I'm going to try hitting it with the right part of the blade right about here with good force and see what kind of damage we can do with this. Whoa! I don't know if you're seeing a difference here, but this just caved all the way through the whole thing. Nice slice, it cut in the metal some. But are you seeing the difference in the kind of damage we're doing here? This isn't looking anything like the TV program, is it, guys? Let's try one more good whack. If you ask me, this is caving in a lot worse due to the weight. But the reason we're doing this is to show you this is more of a real breastplate, and it's not behaving the exact same way as what we saw in that program. Let's see what happens with a good thrust. Gave a little bit there. Let's see what I do here. We got more penetration from this one. This one actually penetrated the breastplate. The other one did not penetrate at all. If you look closely. We actually got penetration, but it did not go through. I am not getting anything through. The only one we got through was the actual Viking longsword, and we got a little bit of a dimple right here. That's about it. And you can see through it, but this wouldn't have wounded the guy. Now these here, with that much force, it did hit your chest, and this was against your chest with no padding under it, with it caving in like that. Either one of these, in my opinion, could have been a kill. But anyway, this is just our response to it. This is slightly tempered, and it's approximately between 18 and 16 gauge. But it doesn't look anything like what took place on that program. And for blade damage, this barely even damaged my edge. So, just to let you all know that. But I was unable to pierce it. I'll try one more time here. Same way I did with the other one. Got a nice little dimple in there. But the only one I noticed here was good was that one I got where I actually got a point barely through. Not any real damage that we've done anything. As if you look here, we actually, I think this was the shape of it. That looks like it might have been the katana here with the overhand thrust. There are some actual piercings through it that barely go through. But the deepest one we got was right here from the longsword. So, but I don't understand the program saying one sword was better than the other. Neither one of those swords in the program would have killed the guy wearing the breastplate. Now, on our breastplate here, if you see these indentations, where we hit, there's a chance if this was against the sternum, because it's so close, you might have killed the guy by cracking the sternum. I mean, the force transfer through the heart, the body, and everything. But if you look, this was the longsword hits, and this is the katana hits. But for you guys out there that want to go, oh, you're saying one's better than the other. The katana could weigh anywhere from 3.5 to 6 pounds, because some of them were larger swords. The longsword can weigh anything from like 2.5 to, depending on what century, up to, you know, 5 pounds or something, and be a two-handed. So actually this was a one-handed longsword, but what we're trying to say is it depends on the sword. Anybody can make any kind of sword from any time period. People prefer different weights. The Viking longsword was extremely heavy normally, and it was a one-hander primarily. It could be used two-handed, but it was normally a one-hander. The katana was two-handed, and this is actually lighter. This is probably about 3 pounds. This is probably 3.5 pounds or so, if not a little more. So what we're getting at is they both performed very well. They did a good job, but as for a winner, I don't even think there's truly a winner here. I think the longsword had more damage, in my opinion, due to the weight and the way it felt and the impact, and from what I can tell. But if you're looking at the damage here, these are both fairly good damaging blows. I think the longsword did perform better and do a little more cave-in, and it did pierce better on that first thrust right here where I got it right in that niche. But as for killing the guy with this thrust, no. This, maybe. That would be pretty damaging as well. So I would say maybe my longsword came on top, but it's because it's got a different balance, a different weight, and this is a later century style dueling sword that most people get nowadays based on a specific 29-inch length or whatever it is, and 3 pounds. This here is probably 3.5 or more, 3.75, something like that per pound. It's almost 4. So there you go. Thrand here, and we're addressing the locked and loaded with Lee Ermey with the katana and the longsword. But there was a thing where he tried to cut ice. Well, if you look at this longsword, like when we cut bones and stuff with it, seems to slice more through the bone, actually cut the bone, where the katana splits the bone and splinters the bone. It has nothing to do with how good the edge is. It has to do with the katana's fatter. A lot of times the back of the blade was used to block with. It's a single edge blade. So if it wasn't fatter, being that thin a width, it wouldn't be strong enough. So the back of the edge has to be fatter, if you will. This whole blade is wider, probably has more metal in it, but it's thinner all the way through. So what happens if you go to slice something, this acts like a splitting wedge from like wood. You know, like you're cutting with a wood axe with a wedge. You know, it's going to split stuff. It cuts in so far and then it splits it the rest of the way. So going through ice, if you have a nice heavy katana, which theirs I think was probably a little bit heavier than this one here, and a higher quality one, it's going to split the ice like a wedge. Where this one's going to go into the ice, actually slice the ice and get caught easier. But now this one's probably a little fatter than what they had and has more mass. Maybe later we'll get to do a test with some ice blocks. We didn't have any today. I didn't know where to go pick any up, any large blocks anywhere. But the whole point we're getting at is this one might go through it due to the weight over the one on the show, but theirs was extremely thin. The katana was fat. Fat katana, wedge shape, break through the ice, split it apart, longsword, slice in, get caught. Basically that's what we're explaining. And like I said, like when we tested a thing where we try to cut through bone and into the bottle, the katana's fatter, so it gets caught on the bone as it's trying to cut through and loses energy when it tries to go into the bottle. When we did that test in that other video also, and did it with this one, and it made it through the bone and into the bottles because it sliced the bone, slipped in between the bone, and had more force to hit the bottle. Plus, like I said, this is a slightly heavier blade than this katana we're testing. This just happens to be the only katana that you can get a hold of easily that we could afford at the time. We plan on trying to get better swords and stuff to test with. But I do love my longsword, that's all I can tell you. I love the weight, I love the balance, it's nice. This is not a bad sword though, it's proven itself well in all our videos.
Ready.
One last attempt at a good thrust with, I'm going to give it the one I gave him the chain because I was told right before I was getting ready to go in that I didn't do that. Let's see what happens. Nope, didn't go through. We glanced off here. I still think the katana is going to have it, even though it's hard to get the exact same hit without hitting the wrong thing. The katana is actually giving more than the longsword did due to the katana construction. Oh well. You saw it, didn't you? The whole katana.
Saw it, yeah.
Yeah. Alright, Thrand here. I don't know if you want to see the inside. This is from the katana, these two grooves here, and these two here are from the longsword. You can see what we're saying about different weights of swords. That longsword actually has more impact and damage than the actual katana did. This was the thrust from the longsword, but see, you could right here, you can barely see light through it actually. Barely. I don't know if you can see it on here.
No, you can't see it through the camera.
You could see it though. But I mean, it wasn't substantial. No, it's not like some great wound. None of these thrusts would have killed anybody. But I still debate that either one of these, even the katana, could have done some damage to this if it was against your chest like it was supposed to be on. Because this would be against your chest. Are you seeing the cave-in bulging up off my chest? Even with the katana, it would have done damage to my ribs. I think that the impact would have cracked some ribs from either one of them with this breastplate.